Hello all. So in this video, we are going to learn about component testing. I'll take an example of a web page here. Let's say you have a web page. On this web page, you have the following fields: a first name, a last name, an email ID, a phone number, the Aadhaar card information, the PAN card information, you have address, and finally you have the submit button, and you also have the cancel button, right? So these many elements are present in this web page. So for component testing, what we need to do is we need to check each and every component for the functionality it contains or the property it contains. So what are the components here? So let's say in the web page only these many things are visible. There is no home page, there is no contact us, only these many things are there. So what are the components? The components are first name, last name, email ID, phone number, Aadhaar, PAN, address, submit button, cancel button. So let us start off with the first component, that is first name. So as per the requirement from the client, as per the requirement from the client, the first name should be of 15 character length. It should be of 15 characters length. That means it should contain only characters. So this is the requirement from the client. The client provides each and every information to us before developing the software. So we need not to worry about anything. We will have each and information in the document. We just have to check the information and we have to test accordingly. So for the first name, the requirement was it should have 15 character length. So, and also the requirement is that the first name is mandatory. You must have seen this asterisk sign uh, while filling multiple forms in your lifetime, right? So the mandatory is also a condition and it should have 15 character length as well. So how are we going to test it? So in order to test it, we will provide some different kind of data. First of all, it is a mandatory field, right? So what we will do, we will leave this first name as blank. That means we are not going to type anything. We will leave it blank and we will see if the mandatory error is displayed or not. By error I means mandatory validation message. The mandatory validation message is displayed or not. While putting it blank, we are not going to fill any information. Then for the second time, what we will do, we will provide a name that would be of let's say less than 15 characters. So I will provide Mr. Bean like this. So let's say if Mr. Bean is less than 15 characters, so we would say yes, it is acceptable, it should accept, right? No message should be displayed, no message should be displayed there. So we would say okay, this is correct, so it is accepting less than 15 characters. What else we can check? We can check that a name with exactly 15 characters as well. Correct. We can also check that if it is accepting exactly 15 characters name or not, because it is up to us now what we want to check. We can check the boundaries as well. This is known as the boundary value, and we can check as a blank. We can check as uh, the Mr. Bean, right? It is less than 15 characters. So these all things we are going to check. And once these three checks are done, we can say that yes, the first name component is working absolutely fine. If there is no error in the above three test cases, then we can say yes, it is working fine. And we can move ahead to the second component. So second component is the last name. So for the last name also, the client has said the requirement is the same as the first name, that it should contain 15 character length, it should be mandatory, and he added one more requirement. The one more requirement is that it can contain the spaces. It can contain the spaces. So what we will do, that we will include these three test cases in the last name as well. We will include these three test cases in the last name as well, and we will include one more test case wherein we will introduce the space in between the name, that is Mr. space Bean. So here also it should accept this name, it should accept this last name. Now, since the second requirement gives us a one more test case that we can add in our first name. That is, since in the first name requirement nowhere it is mentioned that it could contain spaces, so we can check if it is accepting the space or not. We can provide a data as Mr. Space Bean, and if it is accepting, if it is accepting, that means this is a bug. This is a bug, and we need to raise the defect, and we need to raise the defect. So this is how we catch the bugs, or we fill the gap in the requirements, right? So there could be a chance that client has forgot to provide this requirement, but it never happens, it rarely happens. So the client will provide sufficient information, they will say no spaces allowed, right? They would say no spaces allowed. So we can include this test case as well. Now coming to the email ID. For email ID, the requirement are kept at a very standard level. There are some international standard that are being followed for the email ID, so that are followed globally, which is it should accept the capitals letters, it should accept the small letters, and it should have a pattern, right? The email IDs have a pattern. So what could be the pattern? There could be multiple patterns. I'm going to write a few, right? Okay, so Mr. Bean @ gmail.com, or I could write Mr. Bean @gmail.com. I could write Mr. Bean @gmail.co.in. I could write Mr. Bean @in.gmail.com. There are multiple kind of email IDs, right? You can Google it out, you can find what are the different kind of email IDs, and you can provide these test data. This different kind of email IDs is nothing but your test data. You can provide this test data into this email ID component, and you can check if it is accepting it or not. If it is accepting it, then your component is working fine, your developer has coded it very correctly, and you can move ahead to the further component. The next component is the phone number. So phone number, basically, I would say don't jump into that it would be a 10 number limit. No, it is not like that. When you work in a MNC, you would be dealing with multiple countries here, right? So a phone number requirement would be like, it should start with a country code. It should start with a country code, which could be +91 for India, let's say, and then it should follow with the 10-digit number. It should follow with the 10-digit number. So accordingly you will test it, you will provide a number like this, +91 and you can provide 989320 000, okay, any number that you are aware of, and you can check if it is accepting less than 10 digit or not, if it is accepting more than 10 digit or not. So based on that you can validate the information. Now the same applies for the Aadhaar card. The requirement could be that Aadhaar card should have exactly 12 digits, right? The Aadhaar cards have the 12 digits. So it should accept only 12 digits in the web page, and you can validate by entering any Aadhaar number that is containing 12 digits, right? And you can validate the information. The same applies for the PAN card. Let's say you have the information like this. This is the PAN card number, for example. Okay, I have given a very random number. So this is the PAN card number, and they could say that this is the pattern that you're going to follow. It should have the characters as well and numbers as well. The requirement would be clear that it should have characters and numbers in a combination. So you can check if it is accepting any special characters, right? It should not accept any special characters. These things we can check in the component testing, that it should not accept any special character. So these are the things that we need to check. If they are telling you that it should accept number, then you should provide number as well, and you should provide character to it. You should provide a special character to it, just to check if it is accepting these other things or not, because it should not accept those numbers. Address, the requirement will be very clear. It should have some limit, let's say 100 character length limit, and it can accept all kind of values, right? It can accept all kind of inputs, whether it is numbers, alphabets, special characters, like that. Now, coming to the buttons, these are also the components of our web page. Submit button is one component, cancel button is one component, and each component has its functionality. As a tester, never go with the name that is provided on the web page. If it is a submit button, it is your responsibility to ask the developer or the business analyst that what does this submit button do, because you don't know what is the requirement of the client. The client could have come up with a different kind of requirement for the submit button. So it is your responsibility that what is the requirement for the submit button. You could check the document, what does the submit button do, and accordingly you have to check if the submit button is performing the action as specified in the requirements document. So this is all about the component testing. This is how you perform a component testing on any web page. Thank you. Keep supporting me, guys, and please subscribe, and please let me know if you are liking the videos or not, and if you need I need to improve on some part, that would be fine.